We recorded this episode live during Lightbox 2020, and Charlie has edited it a bit to tighten things up, but it's mostly as is. However, the camera you're seeing me through had technical issues, so we'll just have to be happy with the live stream capture for my side of it. Here we go. We're doing
Marshall, are you going to start
here
with some singing?
No.
Okay.
No singing today.
You guys are live.
I'm sorry,
live.
there will be no songs.
Why does it say
today.
the video is private?
I
don't know.
People are
Okay, I think we're live, Marshall.
Are we live?
Marshall, look at the camera. We're live.
I'm sorry.
It's the Draftsmen Show.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Draftsmen podcast. My name's Stan
Here we
Proko.
I'm Marshall Vandruff.
And this is the first time we're doing a live Q&A Draftsmen podcast episode.
And we are really, really nervous.
I'm not nervous.
I am. So I think that since I'm nervous, you should be nervous too.
I'll be nervous for you.
Okay.
Should I spill my drink on me? I got a different drink this time.
Ready.
Marshall, what do you have?
What do I have?
Yeah.
I've got
Let me guess,
real
black coffee.
Real black coffee, except it's got a little coconut oil in it.
Ooh.
I'm really afraid that if I tip it so that you can see it, that it'll spill. But can you see it?
No,
Well,
it's okay.
maybe-
Don't spill it. I can I can imagine what black coffee looks like.
It's fresh, hot, and I even put a little honey in it, which I don't do, but I figured why not? This is a sweet occasion, and we want sweet vibes.
I'm drinking Camellia Road, my favorite boba. They use very high quality tea, and then for their boba, they only sweeten it with honey.
Oh, well, that's good. That's healthy.
Yeah.
And
Well,
does it have caffeine in it?
Yeah, it's tea.
Woo! This is going to be great.
Okay. We've wasted enough time.
Oh, it's already after 1 o'clock in Southern California, so we should get started. Do we introduce John, or do we tell people that John is here?
No one cares.
I care.
I
You
already
care.
introduced him to you. Let's get going with the questions. Oh, Marshall,
we've
you
got
had questions for the audience. Do you want to start with those?
No, because I'm not. I don't have that in front of my face. Give me a moment. I'll have it in front of my face, and we'll go right to it.
Okay.
This is juggling a lot of things here.
I want to
Why don't
see
we just-
John. Everybody wants to see John. Okay, while Marshall's preparing the questions, John, why don't you come
I'm
back?
preparing the
Switch over
questions.
to full view over here so they can see you in full glory. There. Now it's just
I
me.
feel bad because
Bye, Marshall.
I can't see him.
Oh, Marshall, this isn't
Oh, that's
for
okay.
you. There's John.
Hey, there. No, I see him. Yeah. Hey, there's John.
you gotta get out.
All right. Great.
He was blurry.
It's really weird.
Is it weird?
I'm not used to being a high-profile celeb on the Draftsmen podcast.
Well, you are now a high-profile celeb on the Draftsman podcast. Okay, let's see. I get to go first then, Stan?
Well, you had questions for the audience, so yes.
Yes. Here's part of why we're doing this, is that we talk all the time, and we do get questions that you put in the comments on YouTube, but it's not the same as being with you live, and we'd sort of like to hear from you live because we talk all the time. So this is the opportunity to get some feedback from you where we can answer, and then we can can we do back and forth with this, Stan? I mean, if we answer, is there a way to dialogue where the person who asked the question can...
as long as the person is still in the chat, if they asked the question like an hour ago and then they left, then...
Okay. Well, I am going to take a look at what's happening over here on the YouTube chat. And
let's just get Marshall familiarized with how this works.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we could start.
There's a delay.
Yes, Marshall. Just
Don't look at it. Don't look at it.
He's figuring it all out, you guys.
Okay, now there's not a delay, and I can see, wow, the chat is moving. Proko, why are you so goofy? Hello to both of you. I love your work. Marshall, your hair is so long now. Yeah, I'm going to do the hippie look.
They can see the chat. They can see it, so you don't have to read the chat to them.
Yeah. I'm new to this, so it's sort of like a kid getting into a new automobile, and you got to click all the buttons. I want to see what's happening. Thank you for noticing my hair and my beard. If you've ever seen the movie Castaway that had Tom Hanks in it, I always felt that the way he looked after he'd been on the island for a year or 4 was the way any human male ought to look, much better than that office look. And so now I look exactly like that.
Perfect. Now, Marshall, what did you have a question for the audience?
Oh no!
You don't. Okay. Okay, John.
Let's just go to the questions. Let's find out what the questions are.
Rahul Rajiv wants to know, when I'm trying to break down an image into 3D forms based on a 2D photo, a bird or a fish, for example, sometimes I find it hard to imagine how certain forms will be or how they are interacting with each other.
Yeah, that makes sense that you would have trouble, especially if you're starting. But if you know form...
I think there's 2 things here. One is the ability to look at a photo and pick up on the subtle clues about what the form is. That comes from experience. That comes from drawing from life a lot. And with life, you could see the forms a lot better. It's clear. It hasn't been compressed. It hasn't been processed through the camera and then through the software and then through the monitor you're looking at, whatever. But when you study enough from life, you'll get better at picking up all those subtle clues from looking at a photo as well and translating that onto a drawing on paper. The other thing is not understanding the subject you're looking at. So if you're looking at a photo of a fish, but you don't understand the forms of a fish, it's going to be hard. Even if you have a really good photo in front of you, it's going to be hard to really be able to translate it to an accurate representation of that fish if you don't understand anatomy of a fish. Fish is actually pretty simple. We could talk about like rhinos, elephants, like that becomes much harder. And that's when you start having to learn anatomy of the thing you're looking at.
Yeah.
Waves, trees too.
There's 2 things here. One is the anatomy, what it's made of, and the other is the form, how it's shaped in space. 25 years ago or so, Glenn Vilppu was teaching a class in LA called, I might not have the name right, but it was something like analysis of forms. And so it was a whole term devoted to just looking at a bird or a fish or a tree or everything and breaking it down into those simple volumes. That is great exercise. And if you're having trouble doing it, it's probably because you either, as Stan said, don't know form yet enough to get the rubber bands, the cross contours and the cross sections, or you don't know the thing well enough. Photographs, as Robert Beverly Hale pointed out at the beginning or in the chapter on light and shade in Drawing Lessons from the Great Masters, he pointed out that you can light a round thing, a spherical thing, so that it looks like a poker chip, so that it looks flat. And so photographs don't always give you all the information you need. Some of it takes familiarity with the thing.
What was you mentioned, was it a book or a course? I missed it. Robert Beverly Hale?
The first thing I mentioned, Robert Beverly Hale mentioned that photographs, you can light a photograph so badly that you can never figure out the form.
Something about studying form.
Yeah, Glenn Vilppu had a class many years ago, and I think it was called Analysis of Form, and I didn't take it, but I wished I had. I kind of knew how to do it by then, but I also recognized that it would be great to have a whole term devoted to just that, one whole class.
Okay. I was trying to find it, but I can't.
Oh, no, this was a long time ago.
Okay.
Stan.
He doesn't have a recording of it?
No, this would have been like 25 years ago, and it was in a live classroom, like at an animation studio.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Next question.
You guys might have to read the questions because I'm hearing from a lot of people that they can't hear me that well.
Okay. I'll repeat John's question after he reads it to me. Okay. How about that?
Okay.
Oh, actually, John, if you just scroll up a little bit, I could see the question on the monitor.
Oh, okay, great.
Or scroll down so it's covered there. Okay. I see Jeff Watts often before he starts painting. Cover the canvas with transparent, oftentimes bright colors. Are they called base colors, local color? He then models over it. Why does he do this? There's several reasons. One is to get rid of the white. If you're starting with a pure white canvas, anything you put down appears really dark. So if you put down like a value 4, which technically is still kind of a light value, it's like a halftone value. It sometimes appears like a shadow, like a really dark shadow on a white canvas. And so if you kind of tone it down to more of a medium tone, it gets you in the middle, and then you could see both, in both directions a lot more clearly. Another thing is, I know he likes to leave some of that bright color showing through between his brush strokes. And so he actually thinks about what color he wants to pop through in the final drawing. So it kind of creates a balance, like a little dance of color in there, just variety. Yeah.
Good answer, Stan.
Well, I mean, he explained it to me in class.
Yeah. Is it usually a warm color?
No, it could be anything. It's just whatever he wants to pop out. Like if he's doing a plein air painting, and if he's painting water, he might do a really bright turquoise or something that that'll kind of shine through a little bit. Yeah, not always. And he doesn't always stain the whole canvas with one color. He'll do like patches of colors in different areas too.
But it helps unify everything too.
Yeah.
Because there's a little of that color everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if it's one color, it does. It helps unify, yeah.
Yeah. Good answer.
Yeah. That one? Okay. What are some ways that you can ensure that you're not overstepping when approaching an artist for advice? Oh, Marshall, you got an answer for that one?
It's called emotional intelligence. It's where you read the vibe of the person and you pick it up. I don't know anything else to say that, because some people are so inviting of your presence that you'll say, yeah, I feel comfortable talking with you. And other people put up barriers and walls around themselves. And to read that, I think, is an important part of it. I don't know how else to answer it. I don't know whether any way to quantify it.
Yeah, you have to be able to read the person, because that overstepping is different for every person you talk to. So you have to just be able to pick up their vibe. Yeah.
I'm wondering what that person wants, though, whether they want a more comprehensive answer that says, if I have a sign on me that says available to answer questions, or I don't want to be, I know we've got so many questions that we are going to have to hit some of these fast, even if I'm not happy with whether that was a thorough answer. I'm
happy with the answer. I think, I mean, if the person wants to do a follow-up.
Yeah, so you didn't give me what I wanted. I didn't want to know that I had to be emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
I wanted a quantifiable way. Okay, well, let's go ahead.
Any idea how to get a job as a scientific illustrator and paleo reconstruction, restoration of prehistoric animals? Any recommended resources for that?
Not off the top of my head. No, but it's one of those things that is your responsibility to research that. And the first thing I do is find who are the ones who know the most about it. I know William Stout knows a lot about it.
Yeah.
I have a former student, Corey Trago-Erdner, who did a presentation in our classes on paleo illustrators. So those are two people that I'd go to right away and say, where do I begin? And I wouldn't want to take up much of their time, but just say...
But how do they know they're not taking up too much of their time?
You got to be emotionally intelligent about it, which may be hard to do over email. I can't remember his name, but there was a guy who was a famous paleo illustrator who was kind of known for being crotchety. He was not one of the two I just mentioned, and he did dinosaurs. He was a consultant for Jurassic Park, and I was trying to get hold of a book of his, and I emailed him asking how I could get hold of it because it was out of print, and he gave me a pretty stiff reply. That I don't see why people come to me to try to get books from a publisher that stopped printing it. And so my emotional intelligence let me know not to email him back and ask him more questions. But the subject of scientific illustration is something that some people go and get degrees. I know that in Europe they have programs that are devoted to that kind of thing. I'm not the person really to answer that, except to say that it's a field that I'm not in. And that if you're interested in, it's not going to take that much work. You're not going to spend more than an hour or two to have some good solid leads of where to go by researching it yourself.
James Gurney might be a good one to reach out to because he's active on YouTube, and so he'll probably answer.
Of course, James Gurney and Terrell Whitlatch are two, and Terrell's doing and James is doing presentations. So yes, they would be quickly accessible people to ask.
Yeah, cool. Next question comes from Arvid Person. Any advice on dealing with self-criticism? I have a lot of abandoned drawings because I wasn't happy with them, only to return with fresh eyes to like it. Marshall, it's your favorite type of question.
Yeah, it is my favorite type of question because I don't have a good answer for it, except that I'm struggling with it myself, and I do lots and lots of junky pen and ink drawings in response to photographs in class, and you get stacks of hundreds of them. But what I intend to do is at some point when I'm in the mood to just go through and not choose more than 1 out of 10, put some limit on it, and then get rid of the rest of them and say, these are the good ones out of it. But this not liking it is very based on mood. And your mood right when you've done a piece can be that you're just so high from having done it okay that you think it's better than it is. Or it can be so low from it not coming up to the level you imagined at the beginning of trying to do that drawing that you think that it's worse than it is. And so the most important thing I could tell you is to get some emotional distance from it and come back to it later when you're not emotionally connected, and maybe twice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We just read Art and Fear on... We already published that episode, right?
We did.
We did, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good book on
that.
No,
we haven't published that episode, Stan.
Art and Fear? Oh, we didn't publish. We published
the War of Art.
But not, Art and Fear is coming up. And that book will probably help you with that question. So that's coming up really soon, I think, in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. So look out for the Art and Fear episode. Or, I mean, you can just get the book now and start reading it. It's a good book. I like it a lot. Although we did criticize it quite a bit on our episode, though, Marshall. But it's actually a really good book.
Yeah, we did. We criticized it.
Yeah. Next question. Hey, Marshall / Proko. Anything at Lightbox. Anything at Lightbox you would recommend we watch in case we missed it? Honestly, I've been so focused on the 5 panels that we were doing for, Proko panels that I haven't watched too many other panels. So, I mean, I was more on this as like the, behind the camera. You should maybe ask the chat. What have been your favorite Lightbox panels so far? Let Taj know.
Yes, that is a question for the chat.
Yeah.
I'm in the same position. I did take a half hour or more yesterday to look over the list of things that were available. Mm-hmm. And in the class that I was teaching yesterday, we were looking at N.C. Wyeth's work and talking about how great the work was and how limited his resources were. And there's probably nothing that was happening at the Brandywine School where he was learning from Howard Pyle that is not knowledge that you have access to now. And you have access to it times 1,000, and you have access to a good deal of it here at Lightbox, except that what have you got? 400 or 500 or more hours worth of stuff that you could do this weekend. So you're having to choose from it. So it's a worthy question. Yeah. Andrew Jenkins mentions anything by Nathan Fowkes. Of course. Yes. Nathan is the teacher for light and dark massing and color massing and painting every day and all sorts of it. Oh gosh, the chat is just going through crazily. So we did not need to answer this question.
This is a good time to promote our stuff too, Marshall. I did a demo on Friday.
We'll wait on that.
That did pretty well. It's an anatomical, dynamic constructing anatomy demo and a Q&A at the end of that. I thought it went really well. I was very happy with it. And then I did a Q&A with Kim Jung-gi, and that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then, Marshall, don't you have another thing coming up today?
Yes, I have another thing coming up today, but it's got a limit of like 100 people.
Oh.
Unfortunately.
Are you doing Zoom?
don't get on my case for it. It's too late to It's too late to change horses in midstream. But here's the thing.
What's the
if
point?
You are really interested,
this is a digital convention. Anyone should have access. But you're limited back down to the room size of an actual convention center.
Okay, here's what we can do. If you want to be in on Chris Applehahn's The Making of Wish Dragon, I'm going to ask him questions. He spent the last 6 years directing an animated feature that he wrote and pitched with concept art that he did and got his friends to work on with him. And they finished it. And I'm going to be asking him about it. Now, if you miss it, it will be a good deal of it will be technical about lighting and modeling and rendering and teamwork and the pipeline and that kind of thing. If you miss it, I can always request that Chris Applehahn's be a guest on the Draftsmen podcast, where he'll talk less about the technical stuff and more about how the arc of his opportunity to have never directed a film to directing a film with a $30 million budget happened. That's worth it. So yeah, if they miss this with Chris Applehahn's today, we'll invite him. He can always say no. Yeah. And so that keeps you guessing whether he should be there today.
All right. Next question comes from Jeremy Richardson. Question about content. How do you guys consistently find great topics for the Draftsmen podcast? Where do you pull conversation ideas from? Hey,
wow, that's a compliment.
Oh man, that is a compliment. We struggle so much. Yeah. We're always just like, what the hell are we going to talk about next?
That's one of the things is that we have not thought that it was consistently great content. Yeah. We're always worried that it isn't. Yeah. So maybe that helps it be less. Yeah. Maybe that helps it be better.
Yeah.
But we're here. We're here partly to hear from you what you wish we would talk about more often, what you wish we would talk about that we haven't talked about. We do pay attention. Some of it isn't going to happen. And also what we've talked about too much. That's one of the things that
those were the questions you were going to ask the audience at the beginning when I was like, don't you want to ask the audience some questions? So let's do it right now. So in the chat, guys, the one and girls, I don't
y'all
and everything in between. What would you like to see more of? Like, what topics do you wish we would cover more of? Do you want us to have more guests, less guests, more book reviews, less book reviews, whatever, anything we haven't even come up with yet. And also, what do you want to see less of? I already said that, didn't I? What do you want to see more and what do you want to see less of? And what do you think we do well? What do you think we do poorly? Specifically, Marshall. What do you think Marshall does poorly?
Might be a long list. Hey, somebody, Mo Mustafa, The Natural Way to Draw or Drawing Lessons from the Great Masters, which should I study first? I think Drawing Lessons from the Great Masters is what you should study first because it's
what was the other
accessible.
Option?
Natural Way to Draw, which I don't recommend The Natural Way to Draw in spite of its value. But I'm tired of talking about that one because we talk about it, and the more we talk about it, the more people come into the conversation new and say, "What's your opinion about it?" I've actually gotten people sending me emails saying, "I would like your opinion on The Natural Way to Draw," and that's not going to happen anymore.
Well, just send them to the episode. Like I have an episode on that, and
but that's like 3 or 4 episodes. That's one of those things that we've talked about so much. That's one thing that we are tired of talking about.
Yeah. Okay. The next question: what are some exercises for studying value, simplification, and organization? I'm thinking more towards rendering. Like the way I learned it was doing figure drawing from life, but you could also do it with figure drawing from photos. Like the panel I did on Friday. Watch that demo. It's like seriously, the demo I did on Friday. I talk a little bit about how I approach shading, and the first step for me was to simplify the shadow masses into interesting shapes that connect and kind of flow through the forms, and then from there, pull out some darker halftones, but not too far because most dark halftones are near the shadow. And then, start rendering the lighter halftones. And if you get that first part right, where you really design those shadow patterns well, and you get their edges interesting, the drawing already looks good.
Yeah.
And then from there, the subtle halftones, that kind of just becomes like a chore, just kind of like a thing you go through, and you just kind of slowly, carefully start wrapping it around, but don't, make sure to keep your light and dark family separate. So I think just figure drawing, look at a figure that's well lit with a direct light source, and simplify the shadow masses in a way that's still true to the thing you're drawing. A thing with simplification is you can oversimplify. If you're drawing the pec and deltoid, if you simplify those down to spheres, well, they're not pecs and deltoids anymore. You have to stop at some point in your simplification before you break the character of the thing you're trying to represent. So, yeah, I guess that's it.
This is one of those times where, because we're live, I can't say, hey, let's pause and then look up some resources. But
I can.
Let me tell you, I'll tell you what, next time you answer a question, I am going to look up a resource.
No, but Marshall, look at this.
Tell me. You have the internet? Is that
I
it?
have the internet, and then we can switch.
I'm talking about a resource on my personal computer that I show students.
Marshall, I have access to your computer. Watch this.
Boy, this is news.
I'm kidding.
Okay, let me go on with what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Studying what photographers know about lighting portraits is really useful, because you've got full-on soft front light, you've got three-quarter light, you've got broad light that makes most of the face, that is the three-quarter view, toward you got short light where just a portion of the far side. And looking at those photographs from one to another to see how the light changes on a head, and with different sources of light, pinpoint specular lights and broad lights, diffused lights, those things can really help you. And there is a chart. I will find it next time Stan is answering the question to refer to. It was an advertisement for some photo supply store that had a wonderful example of that. That's great. And then the other place that I would send you, if you are concerned about light and dark for rendering, it's something I cared a lot about as a student, and nobody would teach it. And I had to kind of learn it on my own. I had a few people who helped me a little, but not much. But the best resources are the ones that are famous right now. Well, one of them isn't famous, but should be. The first one I'd start with is Dorian Eaton's Light on Form. Dorian Eaton's Light on Form course is the best introduction to how light falls on form that I know anywhere. Yeah. And I tout it all the time. So some of the people who are here live are my students in class, and they're stepping out to get something to eat right now because they know Marshall's going to go on his Dorian Eaton Light on Form pitch. And then the other one, which takes it further, is Scott Robertson's How to Render. Those are the two sources that I know.
That's a book, though, right?
That's a book, but he's also got lots of video demos, and even back in the days of Gnomon DVDs, he was showing it. He showed, on a matter of 2 or 3 Gnomon DVDs, he showed most of what you need to know, quite sophisticatedly, of how light falls on form. Dorian is much gentler and entry level, but still highly useful and quite comprehensive too. Are you able to show something, Stan?
Yeah, I'm showing my screen. Oh, and James Gurney's in the chat. And by the way, here, look at this being recommended.
Hey, James Gurney's here.
Gurney's the color and light.
Maybe we should bring James in on this conversation.
I don't think we can. Although, yeah, if he can join our Skype call.
James has a book also. What is it? We've got
Color
it right
and Light.
Here.
I'll pull it up. It's right here. It's recommended by Amazon.
It's right here.
Boop, boop. There it is.
James's famous book that is ubiquitous.
I'm showing it on screen. We good.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Hi, James.
Hey, James. James, you got a question for us? We already plugged you twice in this stream, James.
Yeah. We're going to do it more now that we know that you're here.
Yeah. This comes from Exia00. Question. I want to become a comic book artist. I need to read the question. I want to become a comic book artist. I've been studying the figure drawing and anatomy from books, but when practicing, I use pictures from comic books and manga. Do you think that's a bad? You probably cut off the question again. Bad idea? I don't know.
I don't think it's a bad idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, balance it out with studying from real, photos of real people as well. But studying how other artists have kind of translated it into a drawing, those are master studies.
Right.
That's good. You got to do both. Do master studies and do studies from life.
You brought up the balance between the two. It's art and life. Mm-hmm. Life is harder to learn from because it's messier and more complicated. Art is already artifice. It's artificial. It's contrived. It's arranged for some kind of simplicity. So you're going back and forth between the two of them. But of course, remember that the art that you study has a tremendous influence on what you're going to produce. So choosing wisely and is part of that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That was a quick one.
Okay, boy.
James Gurney asks, who does your YouTube thumbnails?
Who does our YouTube thumbnails now? We've had John was doing them for a while. Now who's doing them?
It's been changing. I think almost every Proko team member has done thumbnails, right? Like the way people are introduced into the team is they usually start off publishing, getting into the publishing. Is to start publishing. And one of those tasks is to do thumbnails. If you're talking,
Kat has done some of our most most popular ones, has she not?
Kat did all of season 1's Draftsmen thumbnails.
Not all of them. I did some.
Oh, John.
That was John.
Originally the one that came up with the idea.
Yeah, no, John came up with the idea of putting our faces on famous paintings.
Yay, John.
And then I think, you did like the first 10 or something.
No, I did like the first few.
The first few? Okay. And then Kat took over, and then now Alex does them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it's a pool of talent, James.
Yeah.
A pool of talent at the Proko studio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I got another one. Do you have one that you want to answer? Because John keeps feeding me questions. If you see one, you could read it.
Some of them are funny.
Okay.
Will there ever be merchandise with the infamous Kangaroo available?
Listen, I haven't figured out merchandise yet.
Talked about making it a 3D model.
A 3D model. Yeah. Make it a 3D model, print it out, sell it as a toy. Yeah, I mean, listen, it would be funny, but the thing is, it'd be a waste of time for me because I know that like we'd have like 10 sales and like that's it.
Yeah, but it would be an historical event.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. If you want to help me with that, send me an email.
Okay.
support@proko.com. You have any other questions that you like there, Marshall?
Somebody said, what happened to Marshall's mic quality? Did my mic quality? Oh, well, that's because you're hearing this through YouTube. If you're getting this live, you're just getting it with
Okay, if you're comparing it to normal Draftsman episodes, Marshall's not here with us. He's at his house, and we're sending his Skype call through into YouTube. So you're getting a Skype feed right now. Yeah. And also you're getting a stream feed, which compresses it even more. Yeah. We will take this episode, we're recording it in 4K right now as well, simultaneously, and we're gonna edit it down, make it clean, take out all of Marshall's mistakes, and we're gonna upload it as a regular Draftsman episode. So
it'll be better.
But that'll be in a few weeks, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
Question. This is from Art in Anime Neek. I'm working through the hand muscles in the goodie bag. Would you say that all of these muscles are needed for drawing hands realistically? Also, I love the hand butt. He's talking about my goodie bag that I provided for Lightbox. Mm-hmm. Marshall, did you know that? Everyone gets a goodie bag?
Sorry to tell you that I didn't.
Yeah. Well, it depends, I think, of how much the people paid, right? Like, if you paid $1, you probably don't get the goodie bag, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know how it works, but I think if you paid $1, you just get access, and then if you pay more, you get access to the goodie bags. But yeah, we gave the premium hand. Was it just the ebook or the full lesson?
It was all the ebooks
All the ebooks?
together.
Not the videos?
Not the video.
Not the videos. All the ebooks, which is like a 100-page ebook on drawing hands and the anatomy of hands. It's ridiculous how much information we put together. But so the question is, do we need to know all those muscles for drawing hands realistically? Well, if you specifically say realistically, so kind of, yeah, if you want to be realistic about it. And also if you're drawing from photo, or if you're drawing from imagination, that makes a big difference. If you're drawing from photo, not really. If you're really good at analyzing what you're seeing, you could get away with it. You can do a nice realistic rendering. But if you're drawing from imagination, you kind of do. You need to know what to invent. If you don't know what muscles are where on the hand, how are you going to invent them from your imagination and light them if you don't know their forms? You can simplify, you can stylize them and like draw like comic book type hands, because that's not realistic. You could just learn like the basic forms that are everywhere, not every muscle.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marshall, what's up?
But I would add to that you don't need to know the lumbricalis, the ones that are inside there. You need to know that dorsal interosseous muscles are in there, but the only one you really need to care about is this one. But you can't. How could you draw a realistic hand? How could you draw a hand with authority if you did not know this abductor of the little finger? It's a huge form. It's bigger than your nose, and the opponent's
that's
pollicis.
A good way to put it.
Yeah, there's groups, and simplifying the groups and getting the forms and knowing how to put a cross contour around them, all of that stuff. I thought that Stan did a very good job with that hand thing by starting with, or I don't know whether you started with the cartoon hands, but you put enough emphasis on the cartoon hands to know that if you want to draw hands and have control of them, learn to draw them as cartoons. Because the cartoonist can draw hands in any position. So that's where to go for the first wisdom. And then as you want to gradually make them less cartoony and make them more realistic, that's where you care about the details, the anatomy.
Yeah. By the way, somebody just mentioned in the chat that the goodie bag for Lightbox is $10, but if you paid $1, you can upgrade for $9 more. And you get 4 gigs worth of really useful stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not just my contribution. It's everybody, or a lot of the participants of Lightbox added stuff to the goodie bag. So for $9, you're getting like all this stuff. It's probably good. Have we downloaded?
No, not yet.
I think, yeah. Yeah, we should download that because that's going to be gone today. I think. I don't know, maybe. Anyway, next question from Noah Magica. How did the podcast start?
Who wants to start? Who wants to answer that? You or me?
Well, it started before you, Marshall.
It did.
For you, it started when I like texted you or gave you a call or something, right?
Yeah, I think you texted me. Yeah.
Yeah, but before that, the idea started actually. I'm part of Studio 71, which it's like an MCN, but I think they're better than most MCNs.
Some people might know what an MCN, not
multi-channel network. They represent many YouTubers.
Yeah, they represent Rhett and Link.
Yeah, they represent Rhett and Link, The Rock, MKBHD. Oh yeah, that's right. They have MKBHD's podcast as well. But anyway, they came to me with the idea of starting a podcast, and initially I said no, I don't have time, which it's still true. I don't know why we
still
went with it. But it's been really good. And then like a year later, I think, John, did you say something about like we should do something?
Well, at the time I said it was a bad idea.
Oh yeah.
Trying to like increase the amount of content that we put out.
Yeah. I think I just wanted to do some more like stuff in real time. Like not just lessons, but like more fun content. More loose form content. And then I was like, I want to do that with Marshall because he's cool. And then I messaged you, and that's
I remember that a year before you messaged me, you told me about how these productions where you spend a couple hundred hours doing a 15-minute thing have fewer views than if you sit in front practically unprepared in front of a camera and talk for an hour and a half, that you get more views. And I remember thinking, how can that be? But it was, so there's no arguing with it. And then that was about a year before you asked me, I think.
That was when I was like, we need to just do more content like that and not do all content that we spend hundreds of hours on producing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. People want more content, but I think we got a good balance going.
Yeah. And here you are.
Next question from Angel Egil. I don't know. If I'm a beginner in drawing, which one do I have to choose to start learning? Shading, composition, gesture, anatomy, color. I don't know where to start. Okay, wait, hold on. Marshall, do you need to hear that list again?
Shading, composition, anatomy, color, gesture, and color. Yeah.
Oh, man. Beginner. Okay, so this is a beginner. Okay, color is gone.
I believe color would be the first one I take out.
Anatomy is gone.
Yeah, I think so too.
Gesture definitely comes before shading.
Yeah, gesture and form.
Gesture and form's not even on there, but yeah, gesture
I know, but
and
I'd add it on there. I'd add gesture and form.
Gesture and structure.
Yeah, gesture and structure.
Then probably, personally, I would probably go to shading before composition, but it's so important. Composition is so important. I don't know. It's just more difficult. That's the only reason I say that is composition is way more difficult. And so I would say you'll have a lot more success learning shading first. You'll get some more successful drawings quickly if you start getting into shading before composition.
Yeah. I have an opinion about this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wouldn't say that you should study one of those first necessarily, although I do think that the order that Stan just mentioned was useful. I would divide them into two camps. That anatomy, which we took out because it's complex, it's got to be in there eventually, but structure or form and shading are one side of an equation. And the other side, which is very different, is composition. And so if you are studying form and shading, you are studying something that is quite mathematical. It's perspective and how light falls on form. It's something that the computer can do. It's left-brained, as they say. And composition is so not that those two make a very good relief from each other. And gesture is somewhere in between. Gesture is about the figure, but it's also quite subjective and quite based on empathy and feeling and choices. So it might even, in fact, Nicolaides does mention in composition studies from masters that you're essentially seeking the gesture of the composition. That how does your eye move through this? How do you travel through this? Where does it stop and linger? So he has you doing gesture drawings of compositions. But that's how I would approach it. Not that one comes first necessarily, but that one is more technical and one is more about your opinions and your sensibilities.
Marshall, someone asked a good question in the chat. What's the difference between perspective and form? Do you have a quick answer for that?
There's no difference, really. Perspective is how you define form without shading. Perspective is how you put cross contours around things to show that they're thick. Perspective is wireframe, like what you have in a 3D program. Wireframes around things, no shading, but it's really clear what that thing's shaped like in space.
Yeah, but then form does include shading as well. You could,
that's right.
You could use no line at all and just start kind of putting tone in and still get a representation of form.
Yeah.
But
form is just three-dimensional shapes.
Yeah, but the perspective is also still there. Like just because you don't put the linear perspective lines there, there's still all that does is just tell you where to place things. So you still have to place things correctly, even if you start with tone.
Yeah. Scott Robertson's two books, How to Draw and How to Render, are a perfect follow-up of one is about perspective and one is about rendering.
Yeah. Cool. Next question from Stefano De Lorenzo. Did the Italian Renaissance masters think of geometric forms when drawing the figure? I tend to believe they approached the anatomy more directly. Thoughts?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know enough about them. And I also know that there are people who know a great deal about them. My mentor and friend, Don Lagerberg, has taught in Italy and gone around Florence and places and knows a good deal about this. I just don't. I'm sorry. You'd have to ask someone who knows more specifically about their concerns. Are you typing into Google, did the Italian masters...
I'm trying to Google search for him. Hold on a second. Don't switch to my screen yet.
Well, let's not do this.
Yeah,
let's not put one at the expense of the other. A number of these questions do this. Usually when you've got two things, there's the geometric simplification. There's the anatomy. Oh, which one's more important? That's a question. But the better question might be, how are they different? And why is one more important at one time than another? Whatever one you emphasize, if you emphasize it as the expense of the other, you're probably going to fall over on that side of the imbalance.
Yeah, I guess if the person is asking in order to choose one, then that's probably a bad idea. But if it's just a question that they're curious about, I mean, it seems like they approach it more directly when you look at their final drawings, but it's hard to say because they might still be thinking about that stuff and they're just not drawing it. I mean,
and we know they cared about both.
Yeah, you have to care about basic forms in order to do what they're doing. Even if it's not as direct as people teach now, where they literally just start by showing you, like, look, the arm is a cylinder or a box. Like, yeah, maybe they didn't do that back then, but you're not looking at their educational material. You're looking at their final drawings or their studies for themselves. So they wouldn't show that kind of fundamental, like, super basic beginner stuff. They're super advanced. They don't need to draw that in order to imagine it.
But let's make it practical for you who asked the question. Awareness of all of the geometric shapes and the flat design and how things intersect with each other, all that important. And what the human or animal is made of on the other side of that window, also important.
Something just fell on our roof.
Oh.
Christmas is coming early.
Somebody asked if there's going to be a trash truck today. No trash truck today.
It's not Tuesday,
Sunday.
Guys.
Yeah.
Or wait, when do we
Wednesday?
Wednesday. Yeah, we record on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Okay, next question from Eric Roth. How much do you guys, as illustrators and teachers, engage with other fields of contemporary art? An example, ceramics, printmaking, photography. Personally, I don't much at all. I mean, photography, I'm always using cameras. Like, I got 3 cameras pointing at me right now. You know, I'm always keeping up with the latest photography stuff. But it's more for video. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's about it. That's the extent of other. But I mean, animation, though, I keep up with that kind of stuff.
I don't keep up with it as a profession at all, but because I'm at schools where there's always been a ceramics department and a printmaking teacher and a printmaking classes, I'm around people who do it. I don't know that much about it. Students take the classes. I'm interested in what printmaking is. It's got such a great history. But photographers, that's another thing. I probably spent between 10 and 15 years working with photographers in advertising agencies, for photographers in advertising agencies, because I did a lot of retouching on it. I'd go on shoots with them. And I'm like a fanboy about photographers because they know what they're doing. They're professionals. They know the ins and outs of cameras. Many of them love equipment. Some of them don't love equipment. They love the image, but the equipment is just a means to get there. I don't follow it as a profession. I just recognize that we live in the age of photography. Printmaking and ceramics have been around for a long, long time. Photography, much less long. And photography now, where it's not like you have to worry about how much money you're spending on the film. You can just shoot. The last 20 years, photography has gone through major changes. Yeah. And it's also something it's hard for me to imagine why, if I was 18, 19, 20, anyone in their 20s wouldn't just say, I am going to learn cameras, learn exposure, learn lenses, learn shutter speeds and all the things I can do with them because we've got access to all of these tools. In fact, I do. I have some students that do pick that up really quickly.
Yeah. Someone in the comments said photography is not video. Yeah, I know. we don't just shoot video. Like, as artists, we have to photograph models as our reference. We have to photograph our artwork, which I know that's kind of like a technical photograph. It's not an artistic photograph, but there's overlap there a little bit.
That's right. And the word photography, what is photography? Even those advertising agencies' photographies, some of them were good at shooting people at live events that did not know that they were being photographed. One of them was a technical photographer who did microscopic stuff. He was a scientific photographer. Another guy specialized in cars. Some of them specialized in food. But there's a great big division between the ones that are in the moment, and they have to get something that's happening fleetingly. Journalists are that way. And the other ones where they spend hours and hours and hours preparing a setup. There's so much variety in photography alone. But what a thrilling pursuit. It's just that it's hard to make a living with it. People do. People make very good livings with it, but everybody has a camera, and so everybody thinks they can do it. But when you get someone who's a great pro at photography and you and you watch what they do, there's so much to be learned. Anyway, that takes us off into another topic. This is the Draftsmen podcast.
Yeah.
Drawing.
The next question, Line Schmidt asks, are there any bad habits to watch out for when learning to draw digitally? The only one I can think of is Control Z. I know, but it's not that big of a deal either because it is one of the advantages of digital too. But some people just rely on it so much. It's just like every line they put down, they'll undo it like 5 times before they get the perfect line. And I think that can hurt you a little bit. Like that does slow you down. It kind of gets in the way of the process, I feel.
Yeah, I do too.
Like learning to draw traditionally, you don't have that the ability to just undo real quickly. Like just do a line, press button, do it again until you get the one you want. And so you have to train your hand to do it correctly the first time or as close as you can. And so that trains you to be a little bit more advanced, a little stronger right away. But if you're a beginner and you're relying on Control Z, that's a crutch. And I would personally try maybe like when you're practicing and not creating like art, just like take the Z button off or something. I think I've heard some people do that actually. They like take the Z button off the keyboard when they're drawing, so they can't undo. But yeah, that's the only one I can think of. I don't create digital art. The only drawing I do digitally is mostly for diagrams for like my my anatomy class. So that's kind of the extent of it.
Yeah, you've said the same thing I've said, except with less crotchetiness.
What?
You've said the same thing I would say.
Oh. Except
with less.
Oh, with. Okay. Can you say the same thing now with more?
Yeah, I think that if you're going to make your living in the arts, you're going to make it digitally. You're going to be living in front of digital, and digital is wonderful. But I recommend that you don't only transport yourself from place to place in a car. I could recommend that you actually learn to walk and you learn to use your instruments in the real world. And I can go on for an hour about it, but it doesn't change anything. I have not seen any students say, "Oh gosh, Marshall said maybe I shouldn't." Just you're going to use digital anyway. But yes, I think there are losses. But at the same time, whoever is the greatest artist in this group of people who are watching right now in the next 10 years may be a person who can't pick up a pencil. You just make great choices and you do it digitally. It's not the way I would train anybody. But after I die, you can say people used to actually think that you should use pencils and paper and pen and ink and watercolor. It may just be all disappearing.
That was not enough. That was a good answer.
Yeah, you're right. I'm a little self-conscious right now, and I'm unable to get really riled up. But hey, line quality. If you want something specific, line quality is something that most students who paint in Photoshop, the line quality is so awful. It is just so awful. And it's...
You're looking at the wrong people. No, I mean, I follow mostly good artists.
Well, that's right. You follow mostly good artists. Right. But when students are just figuring, I've got the Photoshop brush and I can work with this. That's one of the biggest gripes I have. But I'm crotchety and curmudgeonly, and so I've said enough. Yeah, I think that you should learn to draw digital or learn to draw traditionally and be learning digital and be ready that you are going to be taken out of that love of traditional that so many artists have and put into the digital world because it gives you so many more options. Yeah. That is what you're going to be making your living with. But I don't think you should start with that way.
Yeah, I think if you start with traditional and then you move into, or just do them simultaneously, you will have an appreciation for digital more. And you'll know what those advantages are of digital and you'll be able to use them better. Because, I think, honestly, digital is a much more powerful tool than traditional. It's so less limiting. Yeah. Even just to the things like line quality. You can get way better line quality with digital because you have so many options. I mean, like, you don't have to buy different types of pens and brushes and inks and all that stuff. You could literally just make your own custom brush in a few minutes and change up some subtle properties of it to get different effects. And you can get some effects that you can't get in traditional. I don't know, when I see some inking, like some comic artists that do digital, and I watch them like, Jesus Christ, like I wish I could do that digital or traditionally. But yeah, anyway.
Well, this also may just be avoidance on my behalf. I made my living with digital for 20 years. And no, not quite that long. I made my living with it for about 10 years and then have been conversant with it since. But my life goal, and to a great degree, is to get good again or get good for the first time and with some media traditionally.
I got to say, Marshall, the past 5 years, though, I think digital has improved a lot.
Oh, it has Procreate and Infinite Painter.
Just so much better now.
Oh gosh, what you can do on a tablet with these new programs is it's stunning. It's beyond belief. It's thrilling.
Yeah.
So I don't want to rain on the parade. I'm excited for it.
What you said, learn to walk. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
that's cool.
What if you could have the convenience of fast food, but with the quality and health benefits of a traditional home-cooked meal? HelloFresh is on a mission to do just that. They help you eat nutritious meals that take very little time and effort to make, which takes the stress out of meal planning. With HelloFresh, you break out of your recipe rut, and you get to try new things while also staying within your dietary needs. And just how fresh is their food? Over 90% of their ingredients are sourced directly from growers to ensure the freshest recipes get delivered right to your door. You can even keep your fridge stocked by adding extra proteins or sides like garlic bread to your weekly order. I've been using HelloFresh for over 3 years now, and my family and I couldn't be happier with the service and how convenient it is. There's a reason why so many people consider them to be America's #1 meal kit, and now you can try them out while saving a ton of money. Just go to hellofresh.com/draftsman90 and use coupon code draftsman90 to get a total of $90 off, including free shipping with promo code draftsman90.
Next question from Kalp Bavzar. Advice or resources for networking online, because not a lot of art communities around where I live.
Yeah.
I think we covered that pretty much in our it was part of our Recreating Art School series on our podcast, and I think it was the final episode on resources. And there was 2 episodes. There was one on community and one on equipment and resources. So you got 2 hours of content there. How about we just send you there?
No, Stan. Yeah, that is what we should do.
Yeah.
And I'm glancing at the questions as they come in, and I'm noticing that some people are copying and pasting their question over and over and over in the hope that it will be.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
There it is. Question, Marshall. In the boot camp, that's the George Bridgman boot camp we did this summer, you spoke about metaphors from nature. I've been thinking about it. I can't read the whole question for some reason. Is it something I should worry about now, or will it come naturally? Katerina, let me see if I can summarize what it was about. In the Bridgman boot camp, we were talking about figure drawing. We were talking about anatomy and form and human figures and gesture. And in gesture, a lot of it has to do where weight is and whether a person's springing forward or shrinking back and empathizing with a model. And we had a whole session devoted to getting up on your feet for your homework and striking the pose yourself and then going back and saying, where is the pressure on this body? That was one issue. But then we came to the point of the flat graphic design of a drawing. That is the way something leans this way and leans that way and leans this way, or is very blocky or is curvy. Those things are important in a drawing too. These are beyond anatomy and form and technique. And so we eventually came to a session where your style. Hey, Stan, this is something I did want to mention to you because I don't think we've talked about it before. In Bridgman's teaching, he has a page in there it's wordy, but I boiled it down to that he's presenting his teaching. He's presenting what he has to offer for two reasons. One is that you as an artist, once you've studied with me, George Bridgman, you will do independent ideas and also better ideas. And the more we looked at that 1 month we spent in Bridgman, I never appreciated his work so much. I got drunk on it all over again. I've been looking at it since. I'm in awe of it. And he is appealing to his students that you will do better than me if you take this teaching. But here's something important. It will not be like me. It will not be a Bridgman style. It will be your own independent style. And so students ask, how will I ever find my own style? And there are a number of ways, but one way is to collect the stuff that you love in nature. Bridgman, I really saw a lot of rocks in desert with sunlight at an angle to where the core shadow goes around the almost the rim of a side so that most of the figure is in light. Part of it is in shade. They have a chiseled rock, desert single source light quality to them. That is very different than if you go in and put a lot of glistening highlights on things that might look like frogs in a rainforest or like ripples of water. And so collecting things that excite you in nature and using those, keeping those in your mind, feeding on them as you are developing your style of how to treat a figure, that is a creative way to move beyond just making it look like I studied with Bridgman. You can see him in my face. You can see him in my arms. You can see him in everything. Why not go to something bigger than you and bigger than Bridgman? So now I hope that answered your question, Katerina. I saw it in there a number of times. And you asked, your question was, should I worry about it or will it come naturally? It does come naturally. It comes whether you worry about it or not, but it can also come accidentally and arbitrarily. And so I don't think you should worry about it, but I do think you should consciously choose that I want my figures to feel wormy or architectural of a certain style or whatever else, and see if you can make the creative leap from that to another. And it's not something to worry about. It's something to have fun with. Attitude makes all the difference. Well, I gave you a little rest there, Stan.
Yeah.
I hope you were working on something productive in the meantime. And Katerina, I hope that answered.
I wasn't doing anything.
Oh, Katerina said thanks and gave me 3 hearts.
What? 3? I only got 1.
3 hearts. Oh, that's great. Okay. Your turn.
Okay. Well, that was a question for you. I think you did a great job answering it. So we'll move on.
Thank you.
Lior Harush question. Any news on the perspective course?
I've seen that one in here a bunch of times. Stan, can I give an answer? Or do you want to do it for me?
No, I want you to give an answer. I gave an answer in my anatomy stream. Someone asked me.
I have not worked on it for months.
What the hell, Marshall?
And the reason I haven't is because I'm making a living. I taught a Bridgman course, and I'm also doing a podcast with Stan. I'm doing a number of things, but I am going to set some time aside for it to work on it. And it may be that the answer is going to be that I'm going to have to do fewer things that serve you on the side so that I can do that one thing. But it is on my mind every day, and I apologize.
I'm as disappointed as you guys right now.
I know you are. I'm disappointed too. So just keep adding it in there. Go ahead. Keep heaping guilt on there.
Yes, please.
maybe guilt will be the thing that gets Marshall in action. You know, you tried the positive thing. Here, come get this, and that's not working. So you just have to light the fire and get him going.
Marshall, I think guilt does get you to go into action.
I was raised on guilt.
Yeah, so everybody, email Marshall. Marshall, what's your email address? We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. Let's move on.
I think you guys could take a guess based on your website.
You can contact me by my website.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Hey, Carlos Rue has a question, too, that's
Carlos
come up
Rue.
here. Carlos, do you know Carlos?
I don't know him personally, but he comes up all the time in like, all over the place.
But he's an active member, like, of the Proko community, and so, oh, great. Then let's give Carlos a response.
Marshall, what would you advise to an artist that wants to write and illustrate his own stories?
I would advise that you learn to write and illustrate your own stories. I would learn this. Here's the first thing. Writing a story and illustrating a story are not that different in the core things. The first thing you do is you love the subject. You love stories. You pour yourself into stories. And then eventually you start to get analytical about them. You start, how come that story made me laugh or wet my pants or whatever it did? How did it emotionally affect me so much? And then you start listening to what those storytellers themselves say. The same thing with illustrating. I'm teaching a class right now. We're 4 weeks in on illustrating literature. It's the first time I've ever taught this class. I've got a wonderful small group, and this is stuff I've been getting ready for years. I'm going to see if I can make this a public online class in the next year. But we are starting with, first, you choose the literature that you care to illustrate, and you understand it. As N.C. Wythe said, the first thing you do is you understand, or I think he said you feel the story in all of its rhythm and swing. You get to know the story, and then N.C. Wyeth had very specific ways of where you don't just illustrate what's already in the story. You illustrate into the gaps, into the things that the author didn't mention, and that way you bring something new to it. Now, that's just one aspect of it. But I'll tell you what, Carlos, since you're asking, and since you're asking me, my simple advice is this: love stories. Learn from the people who tell the stories. There's all sorts of people who talk about how they work. And then practice and get in a community that's going to do that. How about illustrating? Look at great illustration and love great illustration. And then listen to the illustrators who do great illustration and find out what is important to them, and then get into a community where you start to work on those things yourself. And I'm roughly planning, perspective course notwithstanding, I'm roughly planning that in this next summer, one night a week, we are going to begin a storytelling course where we do exactly that. We take some great stories. We talk about what the authors of the stories thought was important in crafting that story and what their process was like, and we turn it into assignments so that in a matter of 3 to 4 months, you've got most of the knowledge you need. But then to get the skill might take longer than that. And if I don't do it by this summer of 2021, I will do it by the following summer. But I do have it in my plans, and I've taught it scores of times, but turning it into an online class is a little different. Okay. I hope I answered the question. I'm going to look at the chat to see if Carlos gives me any response. Did that help? It's hardly a mystery. They are two different things, though. Great illustrators are not necessarily great storytellers, although many of them are. And certainly great authors and storytellers and story crafters are not necessarily good illustrators.
Carlos, you should just respond no.
Yeah, just say no, Marshall. I want better. And then you'll get me going on another round of it.
And then we'll cut out both of them into the final.
Kelp Bavsar, there's a question that grabs me. Chloe, thank you. Thank you for your hearts. If you can find that one, it's gone past me, John. What's one for you, Stan? I've talked.
Yeah, my art teacher keeps giving me assignments. That one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. My art teacher keeps giving me assignments to learn about artists, but I don't like learning that way. Best approach to learning art history or artists? Ooh,
I've got an opinion about that.
To learn about artists, so not learning from artists.
I got an opinion about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've got two options. One is to pay attention to your teacher and say, maybe my teacher knows more than me, and I'll do that. And you might be right or you might be wrong. I don't know. I don't know your teacher. But there's another option, and it seems like what you're leaning toward, because you say you don't like it, take responsibility for your own education. Just say, look, I'm going to pursue what I love. I've seen some artists really do great. I've seen artists become millionaires doing that, become millionaires by not listening to their teachers. But one of them that I can think of that became a multimillionaire also had serious gaps in his training because he didn't learn anatomy, and yet he had anatomical figures that didn't have the anatomy in there. So you take responsibility for it. That if you really don't like what your teacher is assigning you, question your teacher. Question whether it's worth it. And if you decide it isn't worth it, do your own thing. That way you are self-motivated, and you might decide a year or 3 later that maybe it was a good idea after all.
I think we know who you're talking about, Marshall.
Yeah,
millionaire that didn't learn anatomy.
Yeah. I'm going to give an example though of a teacher that in the 1990s, I had known this man. He was a teacher at school. He was my teacher in college. But I had known him for about 20 years. And we had a lot of mutual respect. And I was doing very well as an illustrator, making good money, and I was doing some of my best art too. And I was confident enough to say, look, if you had any advice to give me, what would it be? What would it be just at this point in my life? And he answered so quickly that I felt like he had been waiting 20 years for me to ask this question. He immediately said, work bigger. You do these tiny little drawings. And it's sort of like, see, I'm dancing. And I thought, I don't know about that. Rembrandt and Dürer and a number of other artists whom I admire extremely, Da Vinci, they did tiny little drawings that are some of their masterpieces, and I liked working small. I didn't like working big. But a few years later, it was about 2 or 3 years later, 1997, I remember it. I saw why he told me that. There was a tight, crimped, sticking down into these tiny bits that needed to be loosened up. It needed to be shaken up. And he saw that in me, and I didn't see it in me until I did. So sometimes, if you got a teacher you trust, sometimes they'll tell you, you ought to do this. I'm telling you, you're relying too much on digital, and you may be right or they may be right. I hope that answered your question. Oh, gosh. Lots of hearts. Thanks, Logan. Thanks, Chloe.
Marshall's loving the hearts.
All the TikToks.
Wow. I love it. Yeah.
Can you guys send some TikToks in the chat, please?
Actually, like this
I don't know what that means.
stream because it will be promoted more on YouTube. So
Like John, my marketing guy, says to like this stream.
yeah, like the YouTube video.
Like the YouTube video. I don't know what that means.
It'll get promoted.
John, ever the marketer.
Yeah.
Woo,
That's
John.
what I get
John
paid
is
for,
thinking.
so.
Yeah.
John's promoting.
Okay. Yeah, Marshall, I like your answer. You could listen to your teacher or don't listen to your teacher.
Yeah, that's your responsibility.
Exactly. Your teacher is not responsible for you getting good. Or at least not in this country. I guess.
Shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. Yeah, shouldn't. You should take control. You do what you know you need to do to get better at what you want. There's so many artists that I've heard that say, man, my teacher just didn't believe in me, told me not to do this thing. It's like, if everybody trusted their teacher, that some people wouldn't become who they ended up becoming. And so you have to trust your gut. If you have your best interest, I think, at heart. You know what you want. So make sure you follow that, but also know when you are limited in your knowledge and when your teacher knows more than you, and you should listen to them. So, yeah.
Yeah, either extreme. Whatever the teacher says, I'll not listen to it. Or whatever the teacher says, I'll obey completely. Either one of those extremes is going to give you trouble. It's discernment.
Yeah.
As often is the case. Okay.
But also, if your teacher gives you exercises that the teacher's probably right, but you just hate doing it, I would say just don't do it until you get to the point where you actually are ready for that. And there's no point of doing something you don't like. Well, sometimes there is.
Have we talked about salads on this podcast?
What? No,
have we talked
yogurt.
about salads?
Only yogurt.
Okay, well, let's talk about salads.
Okay.
Many children do not like salads. I was appalled at the idea of a salad when I was a kid. And then in my 20s, I fell in love with salads. And I think that if you force a child to eat salads, that it could turn them off to it because it's a negative emotional experience. But if you watch what happens naturally, there comes a point where you want new flavors and new combinations of flavors. And it does come up. You're not so afraid of that anymore. And so it may be a natural part of the maturity that you don't like something because you're just not ready for it.
Yeah. Or you're just excited about something else that is also good, but your teacher says that this other thing is more important. But, learning art is not linear like that. You can bounce around from one thing to another. There's so many fundamentals to learn that there's not one specific thing to start with or to move on to next. I always had projects at home that I would work on that I was excited about, not the thing that was being taught at in class. But a lot of times they would kind of overlap a little bit. But if I was excited about something completely different, I would go down that path. I would always try to do things I'm excited about because those are the things I'm going to learn more, is the things that I'm passionate about.
I agree with you, but Stan, we are so 21st century California. Follow your bliss, do your own thing, know your passion. This is so different from a style of education and training historically, where you've got the martinet with the whip who says, no, not like that, like this. And I am not big on that, but there is something to be said for that. Hey, here's something. Calling these seminars boot camps. Uh-huh. You know how when you call them a boot camp, we found out that if you call it a seminar or a webinar, it only sells so much. But if you call it a boot camp, it sells more. And
really?
I think the reason,
we got to do
that. The reason
we're
is
not
because
doing courses anymore. Only boot camps.
There's so many students who say, I want somebody to kick my butt. But, there is a time when there is appropriate, not demand, I don't think. I don't want to be in a boot camp where you actually have to do it. But if you say, I'm willing to submit to this, and I'm going to do 120 drawings in the next amount of time, and then I'm going to do this really hard work in this next few days. And when it's submissive, when it's by consent, that you don't have to do this, but you're willing to put yourself to that tough task, that's where it is exciting. The thing that I don't like doing this, but I know it's good for me. There's tremendous value in that. But again, we're answering this question over and over and going in loops.
Well, there's so many coming in. Let's move. Okay, the next one from Rafi Kunha. I'm trying to do both digital art and animation. That could be the same thing though, right? Digital animation. So I guess non-digital animation. I'm kind of new to both, but should I focus on just one or try and make a schedule for both? I know that I would do both. I wouldn't be able to help myself. And then I would just get in over my head and just John knows.
And then the basics course gets pushed back 2 years later.
Yeah, and then 6 years later, the perspective course still isn't done.
Hey.
Stop mentioning basics course.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're guilty too.
No. Perspective is late. Honestly, I think that like the better answer here is to prioritize and to focus more on one of them. But I really like cross-training. I think it's very useful. And so if you're interested in multiple things, I think it is useful to pursue multiple things, because there's going to be days where you're just tired of doing one thing and you can switch to another, and you'll be excited to switch to that other thing, and you can keep growing without taking a break and falling back on something unproductive. You know, like I like to do too many things, but that also means that I'm always productive, because when I'm tired of one thing, I don't switch to like video games or just like going on Netflix and watching Netflix or doing something else. I switch to the other thing I'm really excited to do.
Yeah,
and so I'm always really productive. Which, yeah, so there's drawbacks and there's good things about doing either option. I would, however, definitely prioritize, and don't say I'm gonna do both equally. Say I'm gonna do both, but I'm gonna do this one a lot more, and this one whenever I'm able to. And I think that's okay. That the other one will get a kind of a back seat, but you'll make improvements slowly. That's okay.
But I love that idea, bouncing from one kind of productivity to another. You know, the opposite of pleasure doesn't have to be pain. The opposite of pleasure can just be a different kind of pleasure. An indoor versus outdoor, or an extroverted versus introverted one. That's a great way to arrange a schedule with complementary activities that are, as much as you can, ones that you like. Somebody asked a question about George Bridgman and complementary anatomy.
Complementary anatomy? What is that?
Complementary. If you're going to study George Bridgman, what's complementary anatomy? Okay. Hey, I will tell you, I think that David Rubin's book, Rubins, well, actually, go to my website. I've got these book reviews that talk about that. I would pair up David Rubin's very much with Bridgman because they are so different. And a lot of people find David Rubin's book cadaverous, which it is, and overly detailed, which it is. But that's exactly why it's a compliment to Bridgman, is that Bridgman's is anything but cadaverous. These are strong figures, and it's anything but detailed. So those two go very well together, but you can find other couplings. And by the way, if you're asking that, I'm assuming you were not in the boot camp. I am going to do a 2-hour, between now and the end of next year, I will do a 2-hour Bridgman thing that's an introduction to Bridgman and all sorts of stuff about him. I'll do it online, but I got to get prepared for it. I've done it before. I'll get prepared for it. But here's the other thing. I'll do the boot camp one more time as a live event. But I think only one more time, where we do it for a month, where you really have to go through all the exercises if you're going to participate. And you'll get all that information from me in time. If you're that interested in it, I'll do what I did this last time. I'll keep the price down so that you'll get like 12 sessions for $120 as an observer. And we'll answer all those questions about Bridgman then.
Hey, if you want more sessions with Marshall, I'm doing a perspective workshop in January, a composition boot camp in February, feedback sessions with Vance Kovacs, and here's the big deal. The July 2020 Bridgman Bootcamp is on its way to becoming the Bridgman 1.0 video series enhanced with extras. Get on the interest list now and we'll send you a discount code for the videos and the extras. Soon, this will end. Go to marshallart.com, homepage. You'll find the links to all that I'm offering. Bridgman with extras? perspective workshop, composition bootcamp, and more. Beginning in January 2021, martialart.com.
This is an interesting question from M. Kiss. Is it better to fail in originality or to succeed in imitation? Well, okay, if you failed in originality, then you're failing still, right?
Yeah, you're failing.
You're failing. So what? So I guess it's better to succeed in imitation. I guess it also depends on what do you mean by success and failure.
Yeah.
What does that mean? In what form does the success come? You mean like financial success? Or you mean like personal, like happiness of what you did? Those are different ways of looking at it. So
it also depends a great deal on what you do after you fail at originality.
Ooh.
I failed and therefore I've given up. Or I failed and say, okay, one failure out of the way, let's try again. And succeeding at imitation, if that's all you do afterwards is succeed in imitation, there's a word for that. It's hack. It's to be a hack. I just do the same thing over and over. It's not wrong to be a hack, but, and it can even be fun to say, I can just do this one magic trick and I impress every new person with this magic trick. It's the only magic trick I know, but I just go from person to person and I have a history of impressing people. But isn't there something in you that wants to do a new magic trick?
Someone asked, will we get a What's Your Thang segment today?
Let me ask you.
Me?
No, let me ask you, whoever answered that. Is that what you want? And,
I think that's what they mean, Marshall.
Do you want I have a student, in fact, a student who's in here, who said every time Marshall, he told me in class, every time you say, what's your thing, you seem uncomfortable to me.
Oh yeah, you're very uncomfortable, right?
And I said, it's because I am uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm also uncomfortable. I said it once.
You know what we're doing right now?
And then it's just like everyone kept saying it again. I was like,
you know what we're doing right now?
What?
We're doing the same thing, except that we found a way to turn it into sponsorship. I did 2 commercials for courses, for the great courses.
Yeah, that's right.
One of which has been something I chose anyway for my Thang.
Yeah.
And we got somebody to sponsor it so that it helped pay the bills to do it. So I'm going to try doing more of that, is just advertising those great courses that are the things that I love.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
good.
Black Wings were my Thang once, and they reached out and they want to do something eventually. I think. Yeah,
we are
funny.
Capitalists.
What else do we want to get for free? We just just say it. I think we should do a What's Your Thing today, Marshall. I have a good one. It's actually been something I wanted to share with you because I think you're gonna love this.
Okay.
You're gonna wish you had this when you were 20.
It's a material good, I can tell.
It's a note-taking system and app that is just like so much better than everything else I've ever used.
I'm interested.
I know you are. It's a note-taking system that I think goes really well with the way that you taught whiteboard, brainstorming on a whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, What's Your Thing coming up? Do you have a good one, Marshall?
But I could improvise. I could improvise because I'm in the middle of classes, and you want to go first?
No, we'll do it at the end of this.
Oh, we'll do it at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got time. You can think of something while I'm talking. Okay, next question. Is it necessary? This is from Moncano Studios. Is it necessary to have social media to have work as an artist? I mean, no, but it helps.
You tell us.
Yeah,
is it possible?
Of course, it's
possible. Are you getting work without social media?
Well, the question was, is it not, it's not, is it possible? Is it necessary? I guess it's the same thing, but not everybody who has work right now has social media. So yeah, of course it's possible. And of course it's not necessary, but it's a tool. It's just a tool, and you can use it or you can not use it. It's up to you.
Yeah.
But it's a very powerful tool.
So. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
Hey, this was the first year in 37 plus years, 38 years, that I did not go to the Comic-Con because they canceled it for the lockdown. And I couldn't believe how easy the summer was in some ways by comparison to not have to do all of the logistics of going to the Comic-Con. But it used to be, before the internet, that if you wanted a career in entertainment art, comics or not, if you wanted a career in entertainment art, you went to the Comic-Con. There's just no other way to, or there were other ways, but it was the bulk, 70+% of your opportunities to get into the industry happened by going there. And then that started to change, and now I don't know that it's the case at all. What are you looking at, Stan, that's making you laugh?
One of the comments after I think we were talking about our sponsorships, someone said, looks like Harry's Razors stopped sponsoring Marshall. That was good.
Wasn't a good investment, yeah. He's working against us, man. This is a guy who says, yeah, I'll advertise your product, but he's working for our competitor.
No, he's still shaving his head. He actually has a full head of hair. He just likes to shave it.
Hey, yeah, I am doing the Tom Hanks Castaway thing. I'm going to give it a try a little longer.
Yeah. Next question. Another Daniel Williams asks, how can online students determine if their art is at a point where they can break into the industry or galleries if they don't have feedback from instructors? The way you determine is you try to get jobs. And if you can, you're ready. If you can't, if people are rejecting you, then you can't. I started doing commissions and stuff when I was like 16. Like, it really depends on what your bar is. Like, are you trying to get a job at like Pixar or something? And you know, you might not be ready, but you could do some little things. You could still learn and improve your skills while you're doing some professional work. You don't have to like start at the top. Yeah.
You know what Bobby Chu's advice was on that, though?
No.
About starting at the top? This was maybe 8 or 9 years ago at Animation Expo when he was doing a presentation about people saying that you should get in on the ground floor. You got to get in on the ground floor. He said, I always felt like you ought to aim for the top floor. That way, if you miss, you at least land on the 7th floor instead of the ground floor. And so his idea, and that's similar to what Norman Rockwell did, right? Go to the Saturday Evening Post and see if they'll hire you. And they did. So, you know, if you're audacious, if you've got something you think that is worth giving a try to, you don't go to your teachers for that.
Yeah, of course, you aim for the top floor. But that doesn't mean that you, like, if you land on the 2nd floor as you're aiming to the top floor, that you don't take it and be like, oh, no, I was aiming over there. Like, if you aimed for the top, but you fell really low, you could still take it in the beginning and then keep aiming up.
Yeah. But go to, if you're interested, was this about galleries?
How can students determine if their art is at a point where they can break into industries or galleries if they don't? Yeah. Galleries is really easy. Just go reach out to them. If they like your stuff, they will respond. Galleries are always looking for good artists to represent. So that one is something you can quickly test out. Next question. Best brainstorming technique to come up with ideas. Marshall, you taught a whiteboarding class on this.
Yeah, well, not really.
No?
But here's what I'm starting to find out.
Never mind.
In the illustration class that I'm doing right now, and in storytelling classes, and in many of the classes that have any creative component to them, the first third of the semester, the first quarter of the semester is don't censor yourself.
Yeah.
Don't edit yourself. George Pratt calls it a brain dump or a mind dump. The idea is getting in the habit of not being afraid of just putting it out. It's safe. You don't have to show anybody. But that's the first thing, is that a brainstorm should be a storm. It's a storm that you open up the window and you let everything come in, no matter how awful it is. You sort through the junk later and you find the treasure, some of which would have never gotten in there if you were careful about what you let come in. It's an attitude, and it's something you practice. You learn to turn off the censor in your brain like small children do and just let it all out in specific sessions that are devoted to that, and then take a break, come back later, and go into critical mode. This is very common knowledge in the dynamic of creativity, is to start that way. I say it so often. I've said it this week. several times in these classes that I'm teaching. And if I teach you classes like composition class or the storytelling class in this coming year, that'll be the first part of it, is choose the stuff you want to do stuff like, and then dump out all the ideas that you have are like that, and we'll sort through them later.
Marshall, I started reading this book that's on screen right now. It's called Fishing for Elephants. And it's about creativity and it's called Fishing for Elephants by Larry Moore, Insights and Exercises to Inspire Authentic Creativity. I think, now I'm not done with this book. I've only read a few chapters, but so far it's a really good book. I'm finding it extremely useful for people who are, looking for that. Whoever was asked, this might be helpful.
Somebody just told me about that in the last couple of weeks. Was that you?
That was me. I sent I sent you a picture of one of the pages that I thought was oh my God, this is great. It was like a list of all the different reasons to do art. It was oh my God, finally there's a breakdown, and it was really good. It was a thorough breakdown of 7 reasons that you could create art. Great book so far, and I think it'll do a really good job of answering your question.
Yeah, that is an exciting subject to me. Mm-hmm. Even if I had no concern with being creative, I'd still be just interested in the creative process, because it explains how some people get so good at what they do. They've got a way of approaching their work that brings out their best.
Yep.
Now, somebody's asking and has copied and pasted a question in here over and over about perspective and a cityscape and measuring back. We can't answer questions like that here. How could we explain how to measure back a cityscape? But also, are you paying attention to all of the perspective teaching that is on the internet, and that one lecture and that old one that I did of how to measure things back? That stuff is very readily available, and it's not likely we're going to do that on a live podcast. So you got to work on it first.
Marshall just spanked someone.
Well, yeah. There are some questions that we're not going to answer. We could just ignore them. What are some other ones that have been coming up here?
It's stop copy pasting that.
Yeah.
When you see the word perspective, you instantly look at it, so you're just getting tired of reading the same question, huh? Okay, John has another question here. From a beginner artist, Marshall, what do you guys think about... Wait, so is this for Marshall or for both of us? I think it's for Marshall. It says Marshall. What do you guys... So Marshall, you have to answer what I also think.
Okay.
What do you guys think about drawing armatures and experimenting with them before moving to gesture drawing and basic anatomy?
Is that what you want to do? Stan's wondering, is that what you want to do, and why? Why is that important to you? Stan?
No, I'm saying it depends. You could have guessed that.
Well, there's nothing wrong with drawing armatures before doing gestures. It's not the most natural way as a process, but there's. I want to ask why you're asking that. Is it because you're inclined to? I'd rather do armatures first. Then do armatures first and see if you do it regularly and your drawings are starting to look stiff. Then try the other way.
Next question. How important is it to break art habits? Also, how about the importance of breaking of your comfort zone is? Well, how important is it to break? I guess depends on how bad they are. It depends. How bad are the habits? Yes, some are very important to break. If you have a habit of quitting halfway through every drawing you start, that's really bad. You're not going to be a professional artist if you can't take things to a finish. But some habits, some bad habits, whatever. If you have a habit of drinking coffee while you draw, whatever.
You eat a little too much chocolate, give yourself forgiveness.
Yeah, it's okay.
But you described it, the one who asked this question, described it as a bad habit. Can you imagine your teacher saying, no, bad habits are good?
Yeah, no, don't. Okay, you can keep those.
Continue with them. Yeah, keep those.
What was the second part of the question? Also, how important to breaking out of your comfort zone? That one I think is important because you grow more when you're pushing yourself beyond what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
We're comfortable with usually what we're already good at. So, yes, very important. I think you already knew that before you asked.
I think so, too.
Okay, next. Does it depend? John, goddammit. Someone just asked, does it depend?
Yes.
Yes, it does. It depends. Next one from Purple Point. Tips for starting to do a big project for someone who really does small stuff.
Oh, okay. That's a good question.
Okay, go ahead. Then do it.
There is real risk in starting a big project when you're only used to doing it small. In the summer of 1994, I decided I wanted to not paint realistically, but like I did for my living, which were airbrush renderings. I wanted to paint with a paintbrush and do some little paintings. I did a number of small ones, and then tried to work bigger and found out that an exoskeleton works fine for an insect. It does not work fine for a larger body. And we find this with watercolor comps. That in our class, we do lots of these little watercolor comps, and you can see that those are small, and that's to
show that a little longer, Marshall. Those are cool. Let me.
I want people to see
closer.
that these are about the size of a business card, but they're studies from masters, and they happen rather quickly, 10 minutes.
Nice.
And it's just so that you have to think fast and get some shapes down and mask your lights and darks and so on. But that does not mean, with watercolor in particular, that does not mean if you do 100 of those that you can then do a 9x12 watercolor. It's a whole different animal. So I would recommend that if you're starting a project that's going to be big, and I don't just mean physically big, I mean that if you're used to a project that you can get done in a day, and this one's going to take 2 weeks of nonstop work, that those are very different. And there's two ways you could go about it. One is jump into the big canvas or jump into the 2-week project, but don't have your life depend on it. See where it goes awry. See where keep a journal enough to say, here's where I started to lose interest. And that way you're rehearsing bigness to see where the pitfalls are. The other way is to just simply gradually increase the size or the duration of the project. But I will say this, that is a legitimate question that I entertained my family, but I found it was much harder to entertain my classmates, that I was able to do something on this small level, and it was not the same when I was doing it on a bigger level. Gradual increases or a safety net where there's freedom to fail without hurting too much.
I think that, big projects are extremely important, and one tip to when you're starting a big project is to break it up into smaller projects.
That's right.
If you know that you're going to do something that's going to take you 6 years.
Yeah.
Shut up, John.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know it was going to take 6 years. Thought it was going to take 2, but still, it's a 2-year project is going to be a huge project. You can't just start. You have to start breaking it up. Okay, how do I approach it? Where do I begin? What do I do next after that? You have to start chopping it up into little things that are manageable. A 2-year thing is so overwhelming to even think about that if you approach it as one big thing, you're just going to fail. It's too much. So if you think about just that step 1, you can handle it. It could be like, what do I need to do in the first week of this project? And then even then, break up that first week into days, and those days into... We're just getting into task management now.
Yeah.
But it's huge to be able to break your tasks, any task, not just projects, any task into manageable sized ones.
Yeah, that's the best advice. Turn the big project into a small project, but you might not know how to do that because you've never done a project this big. And that's where maybe some advice from someone who knows what happens on a project like that goes on. Timing.
Well, it might just take a few failures. You might start some big projects and fail, and then you'll learn from them, and eventually you'll start a big project that you'll succeed at. That's okay. Anything you do, a project is an experiment in a way. It's like a painting. You're going to have failed paintings before you have successes. The bad thing is if you start a project that's going to, take a year and then you end up just not going about it in the right way, that's a long time to learn how to handle big projects, but still it's a very important skill to have.
Yeah.
In creating anything. If you're starting a YouTube channel, that's a big project. If you're starting a career, that's a big project. And so you have to be able to think about big things like that in a smart way. So start early, start failing early. Yeah.
Mad Piggy asked a question.
Okay.
But
what is it?
It's disappeared now. And Mad Piggy sounds familiar. Do I know you, Mad Piggy?
Mad Piggy? There you go. Okay, we found it. Could Marshall tell us more about the composition course he is teaching in February? Ooh,
yes,
nice
I could.
Promo.
Monday nights will be composition, and Tuesday nights will be Vance Kovacs and I doing art lessons. Art lessons from Marshall and Vance. We've done this for 4 terms, and we're going to start doing it on our own. We're going to make it as cheap as we can make it. And I like teaching alongside Vance, and he demos too. So that's the rough plan for February. But get on my email list, and you will not need to ask those questions because you will hear from us. As soon as we've got something that the dates are firm and the cost is firm, you will hear from us.
Marshall Vandruff in Google. You'll find his website.
Yeah.
Someone older than Marshall here.
Another.
Stan. What? It's a question for me. Yeah. Okay, Stan, which comedy bit in your instructional videos are you most proud of? There's so many. I don't know. I've lost track. What? Let's see. One that I really enjoy just still is the pickup lines that Skelly did. That was a long time. I think that was the pelvis.
That was before my time.
That was before John even worked here. Oh God. Yeah, I really like the pickup lines, Skelly pickup lines. The one that took the longest is also a Skelly bit. I'm really proud of Skelly. We spent so much time on those, and the way too much time. The one for the abs, we did a whole bit where Skelly at the end of the episode is just really sad at a party and he's drinking beer, and we had to figure out how to get fluid effects to come down his rib cage, and it took us like 40 hours to figure it out just for like a 10-second thing at the end of the episode. It was such a waste of time, and it wasn't even funny. It ended up just being so stupid. So that's what I'm not proud of. But the beginning of the abs episode where the party begins, I think that's funny. Yeah, the baby through the pelvis was the most successful one. That one became a GIF or GIF, and it went viral. I don't know how many views that thing has now, like 1 million, just the GIF. So yeah, that was a big project you took on. That was a big project you took on and learned not to do it again. Yeah. Oh, yeah. From there, yeah, we stopped doing any kind of complicated animations after that. Yeah. Okay, what's your thing? I'm sorry to interrupt. I've been teaching watercolor this semester after having taken a break from it for quite a few years. And you would never come to me as a watercolor teacher because I'm a good watercolorist. I'm not. Watercolor is a really demanding thing. It's like a sport that you can get good at a sport, but a coach is not necessarily the best athlete. But I'll tell you, I'm still teaching watercolor because I am interested in the medium, and I do love the medium, and I want to get good with it. But I am a good watercolor teacher, and I do bring students to their best. And I've been getting out my tons of watercolor palettes. I've got so many of them I put together for demos. And so I'm getting excited about the fact that watercolor, you can cover a lot of paint area in a quick amount of time, that it is not a control freak's medium. It can be. I'm a control freak, and I like to go in there and do dry brushing like you're using a pencil, a colored pencil, but you can also lift it up and do other things with it. But the great strength of watercolor as a medium is that when it's wet, you can't predict what's going to happen. And so there's a thrill, like live performing, that I'm going to put this water into here and make it happen. And that's part of the rush of what makes people continue to study watercolor. And I will, in the next year or two, offer a watercolor boot camp where you'll do all the watercolor exercises you want to, and that's the thing I'm interested in that gets me excited. Okay, I'm done with mine. Your turn. Okay. My thing is called Roam Research. It's a note-taking app that I just started getting into, and it's kind of new. It's in beta, but it's already an extremely powerful tool. Now, Marshall, how's it spelled? R-O-A-M or R-O-M-E? R-O-A-M. Research. It's kind of a weird name for a note-taking app, but People just call it Rome, I think. But the reason it's so powerful is that you can, so it's bullets, but you know how traditional bullet taking apps, there's only one parent, and then you go underneath, and that you can't do bidirectional linking between notes. So with this, you could link one bullet to a bullet above it or to somewhere else, and it's like an infinite grid. You can connect anything to anything else.
Yeah.
But it's in a bullet format, and it's just so powerful the way it works.
Yeah.
And you could use it to build a knowledge base that you could refer to. After years of using it, it becomes very powerful the more you put into it, because you start writing something about gesture. You can create a page on gesture, and it immediately shows you everything you've ever said about gesture in your notes.
You do have to manually link.
You can manually link when you specifically want to link to things, but every single page or bullet thing you create, it has suggested links as well that it thinks is related to the thing you're talking about right now, or you're taking notes on right now, and you can open it up, and you can just say like, oh yeah, these two I actually really do want to link back to this, and it'll link it. And so it's like your map of everything, how it's related, is just so much more powerful with this. I really like it. There's a lot of tutorials now on YouTube and other websites on how other people are using it. People are using it for their daily journals, their what else are they using it for? Like taking notes in books, all sorts of stuff, planning things.
It compares keywords, so that's how it makes suggestions, I assume.
Yeah, but bidirectional linking is like the big thing here. Is you can connect anything to anything else. You don't have to make a hierarchy of bullets.
That sounds wonderful. I used a program in the 1990s called Fair Witness that I was living in, and then they discontinued that program, and I switched to Omni Outliner in the 2000s, and I live in Omni Outliner, but there's some limitations. There's some gripes I've got about it. So I am interested, Stan.
Yeah, I'll show you more, but so this is their website. By the way, it's not free. It is a paid app, so unfortunately, there is like a 30-day trial, but it is like $15 a month. But you have to subscribe to it? Yes, it's not a free app.
I'm out. If you have to subscribe and pay every month, I'm just out.
Wait, why?
I don't want to have to subscribe and pay every month. I want to buy an app that I can use and not have to pay them a subscription.
There's the Believer plan. You could pay $500 for 5 years. No, I mean, I could just show you, Marshall, and to me personally, so far, $15 a month is extremely cheap for how much value it brings me.
Yeah.
It's so much better in organizing my thoughts that it's like $15 a month. Like, it's so much more useful to me than my Netflix subscription and all that. Like, it's a no-brainer. I spend so much more money on coffee every month. And they're not sponsoring this or anything. I really just like this app.
Okay.
But
I was excited about the app.
You really just hate paying monthly for things?
I'm just not going to. I'm not interested in the subscription thing unless there's no other option. And I've got another program that's working for me, so no, they're not going to make me pay $15. No, it's just it all adds up to the point where you have this extraordinary monthly expense, and I'm just not into it. So that's one way that I'm just too closed-minded. Unless something I have to do. But
it's a similar thing. Like if you buy an app and then they're constantly updating it, you have to buy the next version. And when you have to buy an app one time, it's usually like a few $100. And then the next year you have to buy it again for the next version for a few $100. So it ends up being $10, $15 a month.
Well, here's what you can do. You can make me feel that your use of Rome, is that what it's called?
Rome.
Your use of Rome is making you so much more creative.
I'll
that
show
you. Convince me. Okay.
Just you guys, if you are interested, just go watch some YouTube videos on it. People have made really good tutorials. I'm not going to try to convince you here, but I really like it. Marshall, I'll show you its power later. Yeah. It's not something I could talk. I'd have to explain it to you for like 30 minutes.
Okay, look at all the hearts, Stan.
That's ridiculous. How many hearts? Wow.
Wow, I feel happy.
Yeah.
These hearts they are emotional nutrition.
I'm swimming in love.
Oh, I feel the same way. Our day is made. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we should do this every episode. We should just live stream, record all our episodes.
Just record this, and this reminds us we are loved, even if they aren't here. It's like looking at a picture of someone who loves you.
No scrub.
Okay.
Wait, what does that say? What does that say? Someone said something to me. Stan, I still can't forgive you for saying no scrub is from Destiny's Child.
I don't know what that means.
It's okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. I have to go. So what do we do?
Yeah. Well, we're done. It's 3:05. Okay, we're done. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for being here live. This is the first time we've done it live. This was exciting. There was a lot of good things here. So we're done. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, everybody.